while we're talking about conspiracy theories and lies, if anyone knows anything about that, it's the Jewish community, because the number of conspiracy theories and lies that are told about the Jews in Israel continue to astound me. You remember when the Gaza conflict was in full flight, many people were accusing Israel of deliberately causing a starvation crisis within Gaza. And there was one episode back in May, I think it was, where the United Nations started saying that 14,000 babies would die within 48 hours if Israel didn't allow baby formula and baby food into the Gaza Strip. Well, footage has just been made public of warehouses within Gaza controlled by Hamas, full of tons of baby formula and baby food. This footage was obtained by a Palestinian activist who's based in the United States, but he is himself a Gazan, Ahmed Hatbed, who got this footage and documented not just one, but numbers of warehouses where food was being stockpiled by Hamas. He says, quote, during the worst of the days of the hunger crisis in Gaza in the past 6 months, Hamas deliberately hid literal tons of infant formula and nutritional shakes for children by storing them in clandestine warehouses belonging to the Gaza Ministry of Health. He says their goal was to worsen the hunger crisis amongst the Palestinians in order to make Israel look bad and to back off in their military action. Now, this Palestinian activist, he's certainly not pro-Israel. He's pro a two-state solution. He's very critical of Israel's military action in Gaza, but he also is critical of the world for not holding Hamas to account for their actions to cause starvation amongst the Palestinian people themselves. This is extraordinary footage, an extraordinary claim by a Palestinian activist. It's been front page of the New York Times. It's been front page in the UK. I haven't seen too much of it in the Australian media. I suspect it's one of those big stories that will disappear very quickly.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see an intervention from a Palestinian activist, because that's sort of the one thing that's really been missing from a lot of this discussion is a Palestinian activist who's willing to say, well, Hamas are a bunch of crooks. And I believe in the idea of a state of Palestine, but I don't believe that it should be run by the Palestinian Authority or Hamas. And here you have one in Ahmed Al-Khatib. And this footage, if it indeed is what we are looking at, is extraordinary. Because, of course, this is what was suggested all along, that there was food and aid and whatever that was able to get in, and then it would just sort of mysteriously go missing. And that's why, to some degree, it was controlled, because if you didn't have any level of control on it, you sort of dropped it in, well, all of it may well have gone missing. And it should be no surprise, really. I mean, this is the same mob, Hamas, that used human shields with their tunnels, etc., and having military bases in hospitals. They knew what they were doing. So an outfit that is willing to do that is, of course, the same kind of outfit that would be willing to manufacture a hunger crisis in order to get global headlines.
Exactly right. And the problem is, when you're dealing with Hamas, which is driven by radical ideology, they see anyone who dies in Gaza as just a martyr for the cause and not something to be avoided, but dying for the greater good, if you will, which is such a perverted way of thinking. But that is how they think. And when the UN was delivering aid, 90% of UN aid trucks were getting looted before they got to their final destination. That is why America, backed by Israel, had to set up the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation so they could have secure aid sites, not trucks just driving into Gaza where Hamas could get their hands on the aid. Of course, this instance of the hoarding of formula was actually happening around the time when the Gaza Humanitarian Fund was being set up. And they were doing this because they wanted to spark global outrage so the UN could continue to have a monopoly over the aid and so Hamas could continue getting their loot. It is so perverted, but the way the Western media absolutely fell for these lies and was so blinded by their hatred of the Jewish state that they would willingly spread Hamas propaganda. This is something that's going to be studied for years.
And if that footage is proved to be legitimate, and there's been no denial from anybody, it's being reported by major news agencies as legitimate, what are the chances of an apology from the UK government or the French government or the Canadian government, who slammed Israel over withholding baby formula? And you know, I mentioned that report where 14,000 babies were going to die within 48 hours. I wonder if there'll be an apology from those governments for demonising Israel and making the lives of Jews in those countries imperilled, because effectively they were calling Israel baby killers.
Unlikely, I would have thought.